What's going on, guys? Welcome back to this week's first exclusive segment from the greatest podcast on turf. I'm Ryan.
And Matt Stafford just threw a very bad interception.
Yes, he did. So for this episode, we are going to be doing a little bit of a mix-up. We're going to be doing our weekly waiver wire episode, and then we're going to get into some trade targets, some people that you want to be trading away. Trade deadline is coming up very soon in fantasy football. I know the leagues that I'm in, it is November 20th. That is 4 days away when this video is getting released. So be sure to tune in, check it out. Be sure to check out our other content this week. We are putting out our podcast where we did what happened last week, joined by a special guest. So be sure to check that out. And then later this week, we got our weekly best bets episode. We got our start 'em, sit 'em episode, and we have our weekly pick 'em where I think I still have a lead, but he's starting to reel in a little bit.
Yes, he is.
The best bets episode, we didn't do good last week, but we'll touch on that later.
Yeah, pretty much. So don't forget to like the video, subscribe if you're new. Road to 300 subscribers, 300 subscriber giveaway. We are giving away signed Todd Gurley jersey, 100% authentic, certificate of authenticity. So we're doing that giveaway a little different. Once we hit 300 subscribers, you want to make sure you're following our Instagram because we will be doing the giveaway on Instagram. So 300 subscriber giveaway will be done on our Instagram. We're at 261 something right now, so be sure to check it out. Follow us on Instagram if you don't already below. Check out our TikTok page. We post on TikTok a couple times a week. Link in the description for our podcast. And with all that being said, it is time to get into a word from our sponsor,
Little Italy Pizzeria. They got the best cheesesteaks, the best pizza in all of Delaware. 2 locations. One is in Middletown, Delaware, and one is in Townsend. Come in and check it out. It's great people, great service, great food, great prices. Let them know that the greatest podcast on turf sent you, and you will get a discount. Come in, watch the games with your family, have a drink if you're of age. It's a good time. Check it out.
Absolutely. And if you do go to Little Italy, tell them the greatest podcast on turf sent you for a discount. And if you tell them the greatest podcast on turf sent you and show proof you're subscribed to the YouTube channel, you will get an even bigger discount. So be sure to check that out and get some percentages off the best food in Delaware. And with that being said, let's start out with the hottest waiver wire pickup of the week, probably. My boy.
He's one of the. There's some good ones this week. He's one of them.
We got Ramondre Stevenson from the New England Patriots. Now, this may be a little bit of a risky one because if you are a Patriots fan or you know how the Patriots roll, it's really difficult to tell what they do at running back. Because, I mean, we saw a couple weeks back Ramondre Stevenson had a 2-touchdown game. Then the next week, he didn't even suit up. So, I mean, it's kind of risky there, but coming off a 2-3 touchdown game, over 100 yards, Ramondre Stevenson absolutely killed it against the Cleveland Browns defense, who's touted to be pretty good against the run so far. He had a day. The offensive line looked good. Mac Jones, the best quarterback in the AFC East, did his thing. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, if you have a top waiver wire pickup, you may want to use it on Ramondre Stevenson. The upside's there. Damian Harris may or may not be back from his concussion this week, depending on how severe it was. He was a late scratch of the week, so I'm going to assume that it was kind of serious because concussions, if they're not that bad, you usually just sit the week of practice and play the game. So, I mean, Ramondre Stevenson, the Patriots have a short week Thursday. They're playing against the Falcons. But if Damian Harris is still out on Thursday night, they're playing a Falcons team that just got absolutely killed by Zeke and Tony Pollard. So use a waiver wire pick up Ramondre Stevenson. He's got a good matchup this week, and the upside is there, and I just lost in fantasy.
Speaking of the Atlanta Falcons, another decent pickup this week is Wayne Gallman. Now, I know that Mike Davis is there, and people might believe that Mike Davis will take the majority of the work with Cordell Patterson being out, but Mike Davis is not the man. Mike Davis is not a better football player than Wayne Gallman. When Wayne Gallman came in, he got 15 carries for 55 yards. I know you can say that that was a part of the blowout loss, but he was actually in before all the starters came out, and he looks a lot better than Mike Davis does. I know he only had about 3 yards a carry. I get that, but Wayne Gallman, he's proven, even last year that he can be a decent backup running back. We've seen him come in and step in for Saquon Barkley, and he's been okay. He's been decent. And this isn't a luxury pickup. This isn't a top 10 running back by any stretch of the imagination. One reason is he's an Atlanta Falcon. The next reason is he's playing the New England Patriots on Thursday. But I think it is the running back that you want for this Atlanta Falcons team, especially if Cordell Patterson misses time. When Patterson comes back, you could drop him. It's pretty safe. But until that time, I think Wayne Gallman is the man, and I think he does better than Mike Davis.
Yeah, that's fair. The Mike Davis experiment has not worked out. I thought Mike Davis was going to be really good. I was bought into the Mike Davis hype, but I was clearly wrong about that one, which leads me to my next waiver wire pickup. This is another extremely, extremely ugly waiver wire pickup, and that is Bryan Edwards of the Las Vegas Raiders. Question, I forgot to say it. Wayne Gallman out of
Clemson.
Damn. But yeah, Bryan Edwards. I don't know where he went to college.
I think I know.
Where?
South Carolina, I think.
Really?
I think.
Interesting. Let's see real quick. Where did Bryan Edwards go to college?
I'm almost positive. I would probably bet it. Oh my goodness.
South Carolina Gamecocks.
I'm good at what I do.
But yeah, Bryan Edwards, he led the team in receiving yards. He had just a bit under 100 yards. I mean, the Raiders need someone to step up on offense now that Henry Ruggs is gone with all that. I mean, Hunter Renfrow is not a receiver one. They drafted Bryan Edwards. Yeah, it was like, what, the 7th round I think he was drafted in. But, I mean, he's had a pretty good past couple outings. Against the Eagles, he had 13 points for fantasy PPR. He had 4 targets, a touchdown. He had 4 targets again this week and a touchdown. So, I mean, he's a little touchdown dependent, but the targets are only going to continue to go up because teams are going to start to key on Darren Waller now that he's really the sole primary target because they don't have the deep threat in Henry Ruggs. Now, I'm not saying Bryan Edwards is a grab off the waivers and start him right away, but if you're down bad at receiver because you have to drop a couple guys or there's a couple guys that have been sorry that we're going to touch on later in the video, then you may want to look to get Bryan Edwards. The volume's there, the potential's there for fantasy, especially the Raiders. They're a high-powered offense. They've been throwing the ball a lot. They've been running the ball a lot. Their offense has been diverse. Bryan Edwards is going to see, I can guarantee he's going to see more and more of a volume as teams start to key on Henry Ruggs. So go ahead, pick up Bryan Edwards. Like I say, he's not a weekly start, but, I mean, he's good depth to have on the bench, and the upside that he could have is there for your team.
Next guy, another waiver wire guy. It is Elijah Moore of the New York Jets. Now, he wasn't supposed to do that good against the Buffalo Bills. He still put up a respectable about 12 fantasy points. He's seen 6 targets in all 4 of his last games. One of them, he's seen 8 targets. He is the probably pass catcher that you do want on this Jets offense. And now, this is not a great feel safe start every week just because he is a New York Jet, but it is the man that you want. It is the pass catcher that you want on this team. He's putting up decent numbers. I would say this is arguably one of your last chances to get him. He's got Miami this week, Houston a week after. He should explode in one of these 2 games, and I think that you won't be able to just go and pick him up anymore. He's probably a decent daily fantasy guy. I don't know if I trust him in my lineup personally, but if you're in a 3 wide receiver, format, he's not a bad receiver 3.
Yeah, absolutely not. I like that one. I mean, yeah, we both thought he was going to do bad against the Bills, but he had 6 targets. Pretty sure he scored a touchdown again. So, he's producing numbers with Mike White at quarterback. Speaking of sorry receivers, Robby Anderson is the next guy I'm going to talk about. I don't know if necessarily you want to use a waiver wire pickup. People in the fantasy leagues that may overreact. I'm not going to overreact and use a waiver pickup on Robby Anderson. He did have 6 targets from P.J. Walker. Cam Newton did target him in the red zone, and he caught a touchdown. That's probably where the bulk of his points came from. But it sounds like Cam Newton's going to be the starter from this point forward. And if Cam Newton's targeting Robby Anderson in the red zone, that's a good thing. I'm pretty sure DJ Moore and Robby Anderson had the same amount of targets. DJ Moore may have had 8 to Robby Anderson 6. But if Robby Anderson continues to see these targets and he's still out there after this week, or even if you do take a gamble and pick him up off the waiver wires, it could pay off. The upside's there for Robby Anderson and the Panthers offense. We saw how good they can be with a competent quarterback. I mean, P.J. Walker is not all that in a bag of chips, but I mean, we know what Cam Newton can do. If he can develop a relationship with these wide receivers and get it even just a semi-consistent deep ball going, Robby Anderson, the upside is there like Bryan Edwards. So go ahead and grab Robby Anderson if you can.
Last guy I'll be talking about, D'Onta Foreman, Tennessee Titan. It's not great at all, but he did get more carries than Adrian Peterson this week. He didn't do that much with him. He had 11 attempts for 30 yards. I get that, I understand, but he was going up against the Saints defense. It is pretty tough. If he does take over this backfield, he could be a decent running back that you plug in and play. Like I said, it's taking a shot at a starting running back, which might work out. So take a look at D'Onta Foreman, but don't put in a top waiver for him.
Absolutely, and just a couple other streamer guys. Matt's here. What up, Matt? We're in the middle of the video. No, you're good. We got We got a streamer tight end, Dan Arnold. Tight ends are far and to and from between. They're a hot commodity in fantasy football. Dan Arnold gets a lot of targets from Trevor Lawrence. The past 3 games, he's got 24 targets, 7, 7, and 10 targets. He's producing points. He's got at least 10 points in 4 of his first 5 games at Jaguar. Trevor Lawrence targets him a lot as a safety blanket when he's under pressure. So if you need a tight end this week, Dallas Goedert's hurt, I know. I know Noah Fant hasn't been doing all that good. And I know a lot of injuries and bye weeks are coming up for tight ends. So if you need the tight end, Dan Arnold is a safe option. He's been producing numbers. And then for a quarterback streamer this week, we got my boy, Mac Jones. Mac Jones is everything I thought he would be. I thought the amazing quarterback I thought he was going to be. Mac Jones has been absolutely killing it, just like I thought he would. I didn't doubt him for a second. Mac Jones is the next Tom Brady. He's the next big thing. He's the best quarterback in the AFC right now. So go ahead and stream Mac Jones this week against the Atlanta Falcons on Thursday night. The Falcons just got absolutely annihilated by the Dallas Cowboys, and they suck. Like we all thought, the reason they got blown out is because I bet on the Falcons to cover the spread. So take the Patriots. Take Mac Jones Thursday night. Stream him this week. He's guaranteed a lot of points.
Now we're going to jump onto some trade targets. This one guy that I'm going to mention, he might be on your waiver wire, A.J. Dillon. He's 72% owned. With Aaron Jones being out 1 to 2 weeks, he's definitely a solid pickup. I would also possibly look to trade for A.J. Dillon. If Aaron Jones doesn't come back healthy, solid, if this injury sets him back longer, A.J. Dillon is a top 10 running back in fantasy football, and he will be for these 2 weeks that Aaron Jones is out. So I would probably look to acquire him in a trade if the owner doesn't really value him that much. Like I said, you're getting a top 10 running back for about 2 weeks. Don't give up the world for him. But I would say if you're the Aaron Jones owner, I would highly consider giving up a good bit, just because you might end up losing Aaron Jones for the season. And it's just a safety net, because A.J. Dillon, if he is by himself without Aaron Jones, he's a top 10 running back, and it's pretty easy to say.
Yeah, no, my first target to trade for, this guy is not available on the waivers. Michael Pittman Jr. Michael Pittman and Carson Wentz are really clicking. If you drafted Michael Pittman, or you probably drafted him in one of the last rounds of your fantasy draft, or picked him up off waivers right when he started doing good. But I mean, he's getting at least 5 targets a game. He's scoring a lot of touchdowns. He's catching all of his targets. Carson Wentz and Michael Pittman are really developing a good relationship. So if you can trade for Michael Pittman, I just traded for him. I fleeced the shit out of someone. I traded someone, James Conner and Jordan Howard, for Michael Pittman and James Robinson. So if you can get Michael Pittman for a cheap price like that, go ahead and get him, especially if you're a receiver needy team. Go ahead and do it. Who you got next?
Another player that you should be targeting is Jerry Jeudy of the Denver Broncos. Now, I think he is the wide receiver 1 for this Denver Broncos team. He's seen 4, 8, and 9 targets in the 3 weeks that he's been back. He's had an injury, and these 3 weeks he hasn't done very good in fantasy football terms with 6, 10, 8. But he is the man, in my opinion, that you want on this Denver Broncos offense. I think Courtland Sutton is an afterthought at this point. I think he is solely a deep threat receiver, and that is really it. Jerry Jeudy, I think he's the man. I think he's the wide receiver 1. He's seeing a lot of targets every week. He hasn't gotten a touchdown yet. When it comes, he's going to be good for fantasy football. This is a buy low candidate. This is a possible receiver 2 for the rest of the season. So take a look at Jerry Jeudy.
And another buy low candidate, Clyde EdwardsHelaire. He's coming off an injury, I know. But if you look at what the Chiefs have been doing on offense the past 3 weeks and how much they've been running the ball and using the running backs in the passing game like we've seen them going to do before, I mean, just the past 3 weeks alone, Darrell Williams has 13, 19, 11 carries and 6, 4, and 9 targets in the passing game. So, I mean, when Clyde EdwardsHelaire comes back, he's probably going to step in for Darrell Williams' role. Darrell Williams is a great backup, but they didn't draft Clyde EdwardsHelaire in the first round for him to play backup. He's going to come in. He's going to get going in the passing game, pick up where Darrell Williams left off. And, I mean, we saw Darrell Williams have the game of his life last night. So if you can buy extremely low on Clyde EdwardsHelaire, who's been injured all year, do it. Trust me, you will not regret it. Yeah.
First guy I will be trading away, it is Joe Mixon of the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, Joe Mixon, he has been a stud this year so far in terms of rushing the football. Well, not really, looking at his numbers, but he hasn't been catching the ball. He's good. He's decent at fantasy. He hasn't been catching the ball, though, and that is by far the most important part in a fantasy football running back in a PPR format. He probably has more games with one catch than he does with more than one catch, and that is a problem. Right now I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games where he has 1 or 0 catches, and that severely limits his upside in fantasy football. You can argue that it completely takes it away. In a couple games, he does have a lot of catches. The past 2 games, he's putting up 20 fantasy points. So it is a extreme sell high target. You can get him, trade him away for pretty much anything, and I would, in terms of if you're getting top tier talent, because I don't see Joe Mixon keep putting up these numbers if he's not getting catches. We saw from weeks 2 to about 5 where he got 1 reception. He only put up about 10 fantasy points. And that is not good for your running back 1. I wouldn't feel confident starting Joe Mixon throughout the rest of the season. He is in a hard division with the Steelers, with the Ravens, with the Browns. Granted, the Browns just got destroyed by them, but I would still be trying to trade away Joe Mixon.
Yeah, but it's kind of hard when you can use the name Sleepy Joe Mixon to trade him.
That's fair.
It's kind of where I'm at with it.
It's fair.
It's like, nah, but the first guy I'm trading away, unfortunately, I own this guy in three of my 4 fantasy leagues because I'm a dummy, and that is DJ Moore. Yeah, this is a tough one. I mean, we don't really know how DJ Moore is going to be depending on who the quarterback is with Cam Newton and PJ Walker. I mean, he started out hot when Sam Darnold was doing good, but then he kind of fell off a cliff after week 4. I mean, he's been doing serviceable for PPR and standard. Absolutely trade him for whatever you can because I do own him in a standard league. But PPR, he's serviceable. He's got, with these quarterbacks, he's got like receiver 3 upside, maybe low end receiver 2. But I mean, try and trade what you can get or get what you can for DJ Moore. He's fell off. I mean, like his target share has gone so much down too. I mean, he's got, compared to earlier in the season, he was getting 12, 13 targets a game, and now he's seeing 5, 7. I mean, he's getting a decent amount of targets, but he's not producing with the targets. Teams are keen on him, and with Robby Anderson getting targeted a lot over the past few weeks when they've been throwing the ball, playing behind, that's not good for DJ Moore as well. And Christian McCaffrey's back, and Christian McCaffrey is their offense. So if you can trade DJ Moore, trade him, get what you can. You probably are gonna be sorry that you didn't trade him while you can.
The last guy we'll be talking about is Antonio Gibson. I would trade that man for a bag of chips at this point. I know he just put up 21 points against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but he had about 2 yards to carry, and 12 of those points were out of touchdowns. Antonio Gibson has failed to get more than 3 catches in a game so far this season. J.D. McKissic is the pass catcher. Antonio Gibson, no upside at all in terms of being a top 5 running back in any week in fantasy football. If you're only catching 2 catches a game, he's not going to keep putting up 2 touchdowns because he's only averaging 2.7 yards a carry. It ain't going to work. I know he had 24 attempts, but he only had 64 yards. 24 attempts, 64 yards. If he didn't get those 2 touchdowns, it would have been a very bad day because he's not catching the football, and I don't see that changing. That's what they paid J.D. McKissic to do. So Antonio Gibson, somebody offered me a bag of chips. I'm taking them.
Noted. In this final guy, this is another tough one. It's a similar situation I talked about Ramondre Stevenson. As I'm trying to trade Zach Moss because Matt Breida scored 2 touchdowns and was heavily involved in this week's game plan. And yes, that may just be because Zach Moss was out with a concussion, but Zach Moss was the 3rd running back. He did score, but all his fantasy points were from the touchdown. He finished with 8 points. It's all from a touchdown pretty much. Devin Singletary and Matt Breida saw a lot more snaps. Yeah, maybe that's just because of the concussion, but if you can sell Zach Moss, go ahead and do it because Buffalo seems they've been throwing the ball a lot, especially the running back. Singletary was getting catches, and Matt Breida had 2 touchdown receptions. And the Bills Zach Moss has a very tough schedule coming up. Indianapolis, New Orleans, New England, Tampa Bay, Carolina, New England. That's a tough stretch where you're probably not going to be starting Zach Moss. So if you can just take what you can get and trade Zach Moss while you still can before you have to drop him the waivers or before you can't get anything for him, go ahead and trade Zach Moss because, like I say, he's got a tough schedule and the Bills running back committee can get very, very messy as we saw on Sunday versus the Jets. And then just a couple guys to drop real quick. Julio Jones is on IR. Julio is on my bitch list now. I was so high on Julio. It's over. I hate Julio. And drop Tyler Boyd as well. He's kind of an afterthought. I mean, CJ Uzomah is being seen more targets than Tyler Boyd is of late. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins took away from his pass targets. And CJ Uzomah is starting to become more trusted by Joe Burrow. So if you have Tyler Boyd, go ahead and drop him. And with that being said, like and subscribe. Keep showing us love. Follow us on TikTok. Don't forget Instagram. Follow us. Sign Tag Early Jersey giveaway. See you guys.
See you.
Peace.